Sa si tu ki ju shing me tok drum Ri ra lim shi nien de gen pa di Sang ge shing du mi te u war gi Joku nam da shing la chu par sho Idam guru ratna mandala kam giryatayami Sangye Chidam Soki Chok Nam La Dam Chu Bardu Dakni Kyasuchi Daki Chunyen Gipe Sunam Ki Jola Benchir Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chidam Soki Chok Nam La Jamchu Bardu Dakni Kyatsuchi Daki Chunyen Gipe Sunam Ki Jola Benchir Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chudan Soki Chok Nam La Jamchu Bardu Dakni Kyatsuchi Daki Chunyen Gipe Sunam Ki Jola Benchir Sangye Drupar Sho.
I don't know, is that cards going around? Can I see it after you, Venerable? I have it after you. Andriana.
Silent, no words. Just say
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Just to review the controversial statement that Sugang made last time. There must exist destruction view which is focused towards an Arya who is a Buddha. Normally that's impossible, right? Somebody tell me why.
Because if it's a Buddha looking at themselves, because this jikta only refers to me and mine.
Yeah, so you work backwards from jikta. If it's destruction view, it must be focused on me and mine. So therefore, there can't be a destruction view aimed at a Buddha, because if it were, the Buddha would have to have it. Okay, got it? Then he said, but there is a case where a Buddha can appear as, and then the trick is you have to say a me. The Buddha can appear as a me.
A me.
You have to say a, and then you're clean. Then you're free. Okay. The Buddha can appear as a me, and someone can focus on that Buddha and think that they are substantial, and then we have her text comes in the sense of being self-standing, and then all the self-standing stuff we talked about in her text applies here, like the two consciousnesses, and okay. So the trick to this one is if you can't guess that, you're in trouble. You know, can a non-Buddha focus at a Buddha and say me?
Apparently, they can say that's
No,
me.
cannot.
Yeah.
But can a non-Buddha focus on a Buddha and say that's a me?
Oh, yes.
You see, to him.
Buddha.
You see what I mean? Okay.
Yeah.
That's all. That's the game. It's an easy story after that. If you don't know that, you'll lose hair thinking about this one. Okay. There is a person who can look at a Buddha and looks at like a person, okay? And so this is no problem. So please read this, Sugan.
Sangye pakpala mikpe kangsa gidang zin yut peche.
Is there?
Apparently.
Does there exist holding to a self as being self-existent, looking when you look at a Buddha?
According to this reason.
Yeah.
When another person looks at a Buddha, okay, they can think that the Buddha is coming from the Buddha, and in fact, that's a very common form of Kansaki Dangzin. It's difficult to accept the idea that the Lord Buddha is coming from me, because I'm not a Buddha. So how can a Buddha come from a non-Buddha? It's uncomfortable. Okay, it's probably one of the most common forms of holding to the self-existence of a person.
And then that clarifies our question of whether people outside of us belong to Kansaks or Chis.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Please read.
Kachik nare, ok min pe, ten layan lak chuni, kitok mar gyur pe, marik payet par tau. De kam sum de kam sum gi ten layut pe, chir na makyap.
Okay. Ok mimbe tenla. Now this is Okmin is there's the Sanskrit word. It's hard. Anishta something. It's a name of a heaven.
Oh,
Okay.
min.
Okmin. It means below none. It means nothing higher. That I like to translate the heaven as below none.
Akanishta.
Akanishta. Okay.
Again.
There's the Sanskrit. Okay. Akanishta. Here. Akanishta.
Oh, akanish.
This percent sign means retroflex.
Oh, akanish.
Akanishta. Okay. And it means I like to translate it as below none, meaning it's not below anything else.
You mind if I do this?
I don't mind at all. I don't think it helps when
I
I
think
do.
it's up all the way.
It helps a little.
It helps when I do.
Oh.
No, but for whatever reason,
Oh,
watch that.
yeah,
By
yeah.
turning it down, I turned it up.
I'm excited about that.
That makes sense.
And then
That makes sense.
Okay. Ogmimbe. Ten can have many meanings, right? It can mean a person, body and mind. Okay, home, body, and mind of a person. So, is it? It must be the case that there is the first link, right, of the 12 links,
Yes.
with a person, or with the body and mind of a person who's staying at Akanishta, at this heaven, okay, in this paradise. And why? Because that exists in the bodies and minds of all three realms, okay? Because this kind of ignorance, this kind of misunderstanding exists with the body and mind of all three realms. Okay? Then we say makyap. Okay? Just because the first link is present with the body and mind of all three realms
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it would be present with the body and mind of a person that below none. Now that's the question of whether below none belongs to the three realms or not.
Yeah.
And in some presentations it does. Okay, they just live in a higher place. 2 minute, you can't agree that people, that a body and mind in the below none paradise would have the first link. Okay, you can't agree, because if a person is an okmimba, which means a person who lives at that in that paradise, you know, an okminner. Okay, because if someone is an okminner, pakpa yimbe kyap,
Must be
they must be an arya.
Arya.
And we have a split reason. Whenever you have kanshik, it's a split reason.
Kashi.
Okay, there's 2 reasons why we shouldn't go to the Japanese restaurant tonight. Number 1, I don't like Japanese. Number 2, we don't have any money. You know, so and between those you have to say kanshik. So here's kanshik. So first of all, anyone who's there is an arya, and arya's body and mind. With an arya's body and mind, I would translate it like that. There is no such thing. There is no case where they have misunderstanding, which is functioning as the first link of dependent of the wheel. Okay. Does that imply that there's a misunderstanding which doesn't function as the first link?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Implied here.
Okay. Like they have some kinds of misunderstanding, but shidu.
Yeah, yeah.
They have obstacles to Buddhahood, but it doesn't function as the first link. Okay? And, you know, in his text, okay, let's go to Abhidharma, for example. I just want to make myself satisfied about this. There's an Oakman,
To tell you.
and we're going to go to,
Oh, it did get darker, huh?
There's
I
a
think it's
problem.
mentioned in my computer won't show me the brightness thing.
You could look in the menus and see if there's a setting, not you.
But how do I
You
increase
can't
it?
do anything.
I don't think it's a computer.
I think it's possible that the TV has some setting that's telling it to be sensitive to the light in the room.
Oh.
Yeah, you can turn that off.
Do you know how?
Yeah.
I think if we just turn the backlight to 19, maybe it doesn't like 20.
I don't agree. I like Seiji's.
It's gonna
Let's
do it
let
again.
Seiji see if he can do the thing, because I think it's going to readjust on its own. I don't think it's designed for the brightest to be the darkest.
Okay.
Remote management.
Might it be systems?
Yeah, I had some affinity towards system, but you know what? What kind of TV is this?
It's a Sam's.
Samsung.
Big one.
Samsung.
Big.
Right there.
Smart
Setup, maybe?
That's really smart. Quasi smart.
TV. Auto brightness. That's a thing. I'm not the first person to search for it. Energy saving function.
Yeah.
Eco
Yeah.
solution, maybe?
Eco solution. Energy saving is off. Well, that's good. It's not good that it was
Eco
already.
Eco
sensor is
sensor
on.
on.
Yeah, turn that.
Can you turn it
Sensor
off?
Off.
Oh,
Yeah.
I like that. Oh, that
Yay.
was it, Poppy.
All right.
Seiji wins the TV. You can take that home now.
Give him a giant check too.
Price is right.
Okay, anyway, Oakman is also is sometimes considered a place where I believe it's considered a place in the form realm.
Oh, from realm.
You know, and then I think he's, what do you call that? Something vacation. Equivocation.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I think in the Mahayana, Oakman is considered a Buddha paradise. And in the Hinayana, it's considered a part of the form realm.
Okay.
So I think he's cheated. Here's the Abhidharma on the Oakman. Okay, Oakman's down here. Tapdel means free of conflict, and Oakman is Kipar. So from Sumjitsa Sum means at the top of Mount Meru. There's supposed to be 33 gods. 33 like Iron Man, Wonder Woman. Okay. And De Tengna, and then above that are supposed to be levels. And they start with a level called no conflict, and they go up to a level called the highest, which means below none. And these are considered, it might even be desire realm, in form realm, I think. It's anyway, in the Abhidharma, it's part of samsara. Okay, so I think he's playing with us. Okay. Okay, here we go. What we did get repeated here was that Aryas don't have the first link, but they have other links going on for up to 7 lifetimes. Okay. Read, please.
Kachiknare, Kangsaki Dak me pe, de kona ni la mong pe marik payina. De kona ni la mong pe marik payin gu parta.
Tao. Okay. Kachinare, Kansaki Damete de kona nila mombe maripayana. If something is a kind of misunderstanding which is in the dark about or confused about suchness, okay, in the form of the lack of a self to nature to a person, okay? I'll say it again. If something is a kind of misunderstanding which is confused about suchness in the form of the lack of a self-nature to people, okay, then we can say it is a kind of misunderstanding which is confused about suchness. Okay, so you have to understand that in this system there are different degrees of emptiness, and I believe suchness is a synonym for emptiness, okay, which is the highest degree, which is a form of the lack of a self-nature to things. Okay, so
He's equating them now, I guess.
now he's okay. So we're drawing a distinction between suchness in the form of misunderstanding people and suchness in general. Okay. Then he says Tao, he believes it. Okay. Because, please read.
De kona ni la mong pe marik pa yin na.
Yeah.
De kona ni la mong pe marik pe tra sen du yi pa yi pe
Yupe.
ma kyap pe chiep te.
Okay, so this argument hinges on an idiom that you may not know. And that's for Adam. Okay, you look very handsome today, by the way, as usual. Drashe to yupa. Okay, say drashe to yupa.
Dra se di yopa.
Drashe to yupa means it exists in the way it sounds.
Exists
It exists in the way it sounds.
Oh.
Okay, the word for the thing fits it, and sometimes the word for the thing doesn't fit it. Okay, so dashe means if you gave a literal explanation, it would fit it.
Oh.
But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes in Buddhism, things are not. They have a name, but the name is not technically correct. There are exceptions to the name. Okay, so. Okay, I'm trying to think of an example. We've had a bunch of them in the last few days. Just something that's named something that's not exactly accurate.
Okay, I mean,
Deceptive
like
truth.
Rangshin Yangge.
Huh?
Deceptive truth.
Yeah, you could say that.
Rangshin Yangge is not,
Natural nirvana.
it's not nirvana.
Yeah, you could say that. That's nice. That's a nice one. Yeah, natural nirvana is not a form of nirvana. It's just called that.
Ultimate bodhicitta.
Yeah, Dindam Chamsem. Okay, Dindam Semke. Alright. So he says, misunderstanding, which is confused about suchness, doesn't have to mean what it says. Misunderstanding, which is confused about suchness, doesn't have to mean what it sounds like. Okay? Then he says, because there's this other case where it isn't the way it sounds. This case isn't the way it sounds, because there's this other case that isn't the way it sounds. But that's a makya.
Right.
Okay, just because natural nirvana isn't the way it sounds, doesn't mean this one isn't the way it sounds.
Right.
Okay, got it? But his reason is, because there's this other thing that isn't the way it sounds. So then this one shouldn't be the way it sounds. Well, his is closer. His is almost related. Okay. Now we're going to get to the one that isn't the way it sounds, which really isn't the way it sounds. And then he's going to say, therefore, the other one isn't the way it sounds, but it's not makyat, it's a makyat. Not necessarily. Just because this one isn't the way it sounds doesn't mean the one we're talking about isn't the way it sounds. Okay? So now he's going to give us reason. He's going to say, because this other one isn't the way it sounds, and that means we do believe that one isn't the way it sounds. So here's one that isn't the way it sounds. Denbar?
Denpa ngin tokin na. Denpa ngin toki. Drashe duyut pe makyap pe. Chilsem na makyap.
Yeah, we're piling up my cups.
Yeah.
We're flipping pancakes. Okay. Denpa ngunto yina. Something can be the realization of truth. The realization of truth. Which is a dashe of Tongam.
Dashi of Tong.
Okay, so the path of seeing is sometimes called the realization of truth. Okay, it's a Dashi.
Dashi.
It's a popular nickname of Tonglam. If something is the realization of truth, okay, then it must exist the way it sounds. Makyap. So it's not true that if something is the realization of truth, meaning Tonglam, meaning the path of seeing, it has to fit the sound of the word realization of truth. Okay. It's not true. Okay.
You're saying there are expressions that aren't exact.
Apparently there's Denbangmuntoks there's Tonglams which are not Denbangmuntok. There's parts of Tonglam which are not Denbangmuntok.
yeah,
For
sure.
example,
Jetobyeshi.
Jetobyeshi, the aftermath. After you come out and you start having all these other ideas. Okay? So he says, look, there's parts of path of seeing that don't fit the name of the path, which is the true, the perception, the realization of truth. Therefore, confusion about suchness doesn't always have to mean confusion about suchness. Okay, got it? You okay? And his position is confusion about suchness could refer to confusion about the self-nature of a person, which is not Dashe to Yupa. It's not true. It's not a kind of suchness in this school. The emptiness of the person, in fact, they wouldn't even call it emptiness. The lack of self to a person in this school cannot be called suchness, which is a synonym for emptiness. In this school, emptiness can only be used for the lack of self-nature to things. Okay, all right?
Okay.
So, he's trying to say, when we say confused about suchness, it could kind of cover lack of understanding about person, okay? Because it's not always true that the name fits the thing.
Right.
Because there's this other case where the name doesn't quite fit the thing.
It's not great.
Okay, you okay? You have to cook it. Okay. Madrugna, I'll say, by the way, Makyabich here, Makyab, okay? Just because it's not necessarily the case that the perception of truth refers to all the parts of path of seeing, it's not the case that the perception of suchness, the misunderstanding of suchness should not apply to all the forms of, okay?
Since it's not the case.
And we say that's not, just because this one doesn't apply literally all the time, doesn't mean this one doesn't have to apply all the time literally. There's two separate cases. Okay, Madhurna, if you don't agree, by the way, if you don't agree that there's cases of the perception of truth that are not, there's cases of the path of seeing which are not the perception of truth, which are not the realization of truth. Okay, so now we're going to have to give an example of something in the path of seeing which is not the perception of truth. He took a parchemela. He took a direct perception during the path of seeing. He didn't wimp out and take a jeto.
Right.
He didn't give us his example, the aftermath. He said, take the direct perception, but it's by a listener. And in the lower middle way school, a listener, even an Arya, cannot see emptiness. They just see a lack of a self.
Really? This is the big debate in Translator class.
So they say there are degrees to no self-nature. The highest one is called emptiness or suchness. Okay, and only Mahayana people can see it. Then there's lower degrees of lack of anatman, lack of a self, and those can be perceived by listeners and self-made Buddhas. Okay, so they say there are degrees to emptiness, but they don't even call it. Only the highest one gets called emptiness in their school, or suchness, or truth. Okay, got it? So we can take as our counterexample a listener even though he's seeing, he's on the direct perception part of the path of seeing.
Mhm.
In this school, he doesn't see full emptiness.
Oh,
He
Mhm.
doesn't see full emptiness. Okay. Nyantuki tolam pachin melam chen. Okay.
Mhm.
It's not the realization of truth.
Yeah.
Okay. Dare tell.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's true.
Tolam yimbeji.
So he's
It's true
basically
that he's in a thing that is nun, that is
It is.
Demba nun.
It is called. It can be called.
Demba
Yeah.
nun to.
The the realization of truth, but it's not really.
Right, but it's not a realization.
Okay,
of
so that's an
substance.
example of Demba Luntok, the realization of truth, which is not the perception of suchness.
Yeah.
so you're saying
The,
that
the name doesn't fit exactly.
So here he's implying that on the part of listener, the Tonglam is only the realization of no, no self as in.
Well, sometimes a nickname of a path of seeing
Ah,
is the realization of truth. But in this school, it doesn't fit all the path of
Oh,
seeing. Because
okay.
lower path of seeing is not a realization of truth because they don't see emptiness.
Yes.
Okay.
In this school, because truth and emptiness in this school are the same, and suchness. Okay, so in this school, there's people who reach path of seeing,
Okay.
so we can say they reach the realization of truth, who don't see the truth. Okay,
So
so the
it-
nickname doesn't fit them.
Oh, okay.
The nickname of Tonglam doesn't fit them.
Okay.
What are the two nicknames of the two lower paths? I mean, while we're on it,
parts of the path of seeing.
Tarpa?
That's where we act on things.
Nyenje Chatun
And Tarpa Chapter.
Tarpa Chatun. Conducive to certain separation. Okay, and conducive to freedom
Okay.
are the equivalent for Soglam and Jorlam. They have their own nicknames.
Oh.
Okay, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Jorlam is Nyenje Chatun.
Yeah.
Conducive to certain separation, meaning conducive to path of seeing, where you will be separated from your tongbangs.
Mhm.
Those three negative emotions. Okay, so it's conducive.
Mhm.
It leads to that. That's the nickname for Jorlam. The nickname for Tsoglam, the first of the five paths, where you have a personal tragedy, is the Tarpa Chatun. It's gonna help you get to liberation. But so does Jorlam, and so does Tonglam, and so does So they're just descriptive names. We say descriptive and not definitive.
Okay.
So in Buddhist philosophy, you have descriptive names and then you have definitive names. Realization of truth is a descriptive name, but not a definitive name, because there are exceptions.
Okay.
Listener, Aryas, don't see truth. They see the lack of self-nature to a person. Okay.
They're handy
Well, he wasn't making that equation, was he? That they see the
Well,
lack-
we're just saying, yeah, there are cases, okay?
Yeah.
Tangai and
handy
Beich.
nicknames for Gomen Nilo.
Sorry? There are, and I don't remember.
Any name which is definitive, can you give example?
A name which is definitive?
Path of accumulation.
Yeah, path
so,
of accumulation. No, but they're all path of accumulation.
Uh,
Back to this.
well,
Maybe.
Tonglam seems to be pretty descriptive.
In our
Is it
school.
Definitive.
Definitive. So,
Preparation. I guess
If you
those are
say
also
it's
fine.
tong of some kind of dagmepa, it's definitive.
yeah.
Some kind of lack of self. If you don't say emptiness, it's definitive. How's that? Okay. Duna, they Dembangunsim Tutopata. Now, here, he interprets Nun, Abi Samaya. Okay? Number Topa is Abi Samaya. And here he's twisted the word Abi to Nun Sun,
Direct.
which means direct perception. So Nun is the Tibetan word for Abi, like Abhidharma. And it can mean direct perception. It doesn't have to mean direct perception. But he has said, well, when you say Dembang Muntok, when you say the realization of truth, you're always talking about Mun Sum de Topa, which means the direct perception of truth. Okay. Okay. So now the name doesn't fit the listener. Okay. If you read the name that way, it doesn't fit the listener. Because they have had some realizations of truth.
Right.
Because someone taught them the pen. But they didn't get the emptiness part of it. They just got the lack of a self. Or something, you see what I mean? Of
Yeah,
a person. Okay. But they cannot see the truth directly. Okay.
So Ngunsum, the top part here is referring to direct perception of
Yeah,
emptiness.
direct perception here of Demba,
Oh.
which in their school is the highest of the three
Oh, okay.
of the 3 degrees of emptiness. Sorry, lack of self. Okay. So in this school and in Abhidharma too, you can't call emptiness emptiness. You have to call it. You can't say koshin. You have to say lack of a self nature. I like to translate it when I'm not in a technical text as it's not itself. The thing is not itself. Okay? That's a new sexy translation. Okay? Are you saying that a listener has seen the truth directly? Because that guy wants to say they do have Dembaluntam. They do have them. They do fit the name of path of seeing. Okay, a listener Arya. He's like, yeah, well they fit the name, and we say, come on, are you telling me they fit the name? Why? Because you agreed. You can't agree. The guy that we're talking about is the guy we're talking about. It's not a very nice logical reason. I mean, it's legal, but it's not satisfying. It's like a green drink. It's legal, but it's not satisfying. Okay.
It's legal because you said pay.
Well, no, it's okay.
But you're not supposed to take a chichin as a stop.
Well, he changed the word. He didn't say Nyantuki Papa Chichin.
You can't take the chichin, but you can say chichin.
Yeah.
Oh, that's uncomfortable.
That's what I'm saying. It's like a green drink.
Okay.
Okay. You can't say he's had the direct perception of truth because he's the guy we're talking about. He's meaning a listener. He's a listener, Arya. And they don't see Demba. They don't see Tongni. They don't see Dekonani. They don't see Tattva. Okay? Shunyata. They don't see. You can't say that. They see Anatman. And a lower Anatman. Okay. Of people. Okay. All right.
I'm curious, especially it's happening to us a lot, and it makes me wonder, like, why. I mean, to me, it seems like that's a reason that isn't like helpful or elaborative, but really smart people are putting these in their books. So there's some reason they took up white space by bothering to write.
I think he's just. I think he would have preferred not to put a reason, because he's like, once you get to listener, come on. I mean, do I have to remind you that they don't see emptiness? Do I have to say it? Okay, I'll say it. He's a listener. Okay, I feel like he's just tired. Not tired, but he's just like, come on, you should know. By the time I give you the counterexample, and by the time listener comes out of my mouth, you should have given up.
Yeah.
And if you keep pushing me, then okay, I'll be stupid too. He's a listener because he's a listener. Okay? It's like, he's like, don't bother me. You want to give me a stupid objection? I'll give you a stupid proof, okay? That's what I feel.
But he is Kachik. I mean, he wrote the Kachik. It's not just some jerk.
No, it's always some
someone
jerk.
in his
Kachik
life
is always
that,
some
like,
jerk.
There must be something.
Every one of these
Someone
from an argument on the debate ground.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trust me. Somebody said it on the debate ground.
Uh-huh.
In his 30 years on the debate ground, or in his 20 years on the debate ground, while he was doing his geshe,
Uh-huh.
somebody said this kind of
I
thing.
think, like what Ben said, there must be a specific purpose. That's why this kachik will come into the text.
Yeah.
rather than-
The point is
This is
reinforcing.
like,
Yeah,
this
or
was like
maybe
for
reinforcement,
Steve,
yeah.
who like 5 years ago was making this debate on the.
Okay, let's go.
Okay. Kachik
Read.
nare. Nyumong yin na. Nyumong chengi marik pa yin ge partao. Cedrip yin
Gobatao. Okay.
ge partao. Cedrip yin na. Nyumong chen ma yin pe marik pa yin ge pe chien na ma kyap
So chirna means chirserna. Okay.
Chirserna.
Just get used to that. Chirserna. It's just an abbreviation. Okay.
What
Now
is that?
he says it's true that if this, then this, because it's true that if this, then this. I'll say it again. He says it must be true that if this, this, because it's true that if this, this. So he's got two if this, this.
Okay.
Okay? If it's true about this, if this, this, then it's true about this, that if this, this.
Okay.
Okay? So let's go to the second one, because that's the one that is true.
Okay.
And the first one's not true. But he says it's true because this one's true.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So we're going to go to the second part of the
Okay.
argument, which is a correct statement that if something is this, it's not, it must be this. If something is this, it must be this. Okay? Shirivyena.
Take the.
If something is an obstacle to nirvana.
Yeah, if something is an obstacle to omniscience.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. If something is an obstacle to omniscience, then it must be good. Okay? It must be
Ignorance in the mind.
a
Samsara.
kind of misunderstanding,
Which is afflictive.
which is not a mental, not a negative emotion.
Non-afflictive.
Okay? Okay?
form
Okay,
of
so
ignorance.
all obstacles, the obstacles you get between Arya and Arhat, or Arya and Buddha, I should say between Arhat and Buddha,
Arhat Buddha.
okay,
Is
or
the-
Arya and Buddha,
is
they
the
are
center.
not mainly, they are not at all
Nirmam.
negative, they are negative missions. How about between Arhat and Buddha?
Arhat Buddha are
Yeah.
not
Between
Nirmam
Arhat and Buddha, the things you're fighting are not negative emotions. They are,
True.
you can't see all the past, you can't see all the future. They are obstacles to higher knowledge, like super knowledge, okay? So they are not negative emotions, okay? So here, if something is an obstacle, who has shidivs? Mainly, they're talking about people from our heart to Buddha, okay? What are they fighting? They're fighting against the inability to see all things, okay? They're not fighting against anger, jealousy, things like that, okay? So, if something is an obstacle to omniscience, then it must be a form of misunderstanding, which isn't involved
Which is-
with, I like to say involved with for Chen,
involved with
which isn't involved with negative emotions.
emotion.
Okay, now that part is true.
Yes.
Now he takes that and says, this other case is parallel.
Okay.
This other case is parallel. And he says, if something is a negative emotion, it must be a misunderstanding which is involved with negative emotions. If
Okay.
something is a negative emotion, it must be misunderstanding which is involved with negative emotions. Okay? Must be.
Must be.
Must be. Okay. Got it? You okay? Is it true? Are all negative emotions a form of misunderstanding which is involved with negative emotions?
Okay.
Oh, I see.
Okay, I
No.
see. So no.
Now here's his here's our counter example. Sherang chucha.
Uh-huh.
So then
Yes, oh.
Let's take anger.
anger.
Well, let's take anger. Okay. Are you saying it's a form of misunderstanding which is tied up with negative emotions? Are you saying it's a form of misunderstanding? Okay. Why? Because it's parallel to that other case. Okay. Well, that's not very good.
Funny.
That's the most unsatisfying.
Are you telling me it's a form of misunderstanding? Why do you say that? Chichir. Well, because it is a negative emotion. Okay. According to you, all negative emotions are a form of misunderstanding. So what about anger? And he says, well, what about anger? I said, okay, then that's a form of misunderstanding, right? He says, why do you say that? I said, well, because it's a negative emotion. You
Yeah.
just said if it's a negative emotion, it must be a form of misunderstanding. Okay? Got it?
Yeah. So here basically, our side is saying that this anger
Yeah.
might not be part of the negative emotion, which is the.
It is a negative emotion,
Yeah.
but it's not
Not
a
part of
negative
it.
emotion-ish misunderstanding.
Yeah. This is our stand
Because
right
it's
now.
not like because it's one of the other three poisons.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, no. He goes to that very controversial point. He goes to a very controversial place.
Yeah.
This is not a stupid argument.
Yeah.
Okay, this is addressing a question that we're not sure about. Because he says, the next thing he says
What
is,
it sounds.
yeah, oh,
You know.
oh, you agree it's a kind of misunderstanding?
Uh-huh.
Do you agree anger is a kind of misunderstanding? And we say, okay, yeah, it's a. He says, okay, it's a kind of misunderstanding. I agree. Then we say, okay, so it must be neutral karmically.
That's,
Well,
that's
then-
a nice argument.
Okay, why?
That's
Why
very
did we
sophisticated.
say that?
Because in this
Mentioned
school,
before,
in
yeah.
this
In
school,
this school-
Maripa is Lumaten.
Say it in-
In this school, ignorance is karmically neutral.
Yeah, I prefer to call it misunderstanding.
Misunderstanding.
From what we said yesterday during Dr. Wu's text.
Right. Oh, it's Dr. Wu's.
Yes, yeah. Non-friend, enemy. It's supposed to be off. It's not, I'm not aware. It's, I'm unaware.
Right. It's not actively opposed.
Okay? So this is cute because he's playing on a question that we have.
Yeah.
You know? And I was thinking about it while I was meditating in the toilet this morning. And I have one idea. I mean, it's not maybe the one that they would use, but if misunderstanding, first link, is a bad karma, right? Nigewa, apunya. Then could you say it would be impossible to do dirty good karma?
It is possible to do it.
Well, it is. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right.
But if every time you had misunderstanding, it was a bad karma,
Right.
then misunderstanding could never motivate a dirty good karma.
But that means
Well,
the
it's the
That
dirty
might be the
part.
dirty. Yeah, I was just. It could
It's
be
the
the
dirty
dirty
part.
part.
Yeah, it's the dirt in a good karma.
Like,
I mean, if we could have
Well,
people
actually,
changing
it's
their
illegal in
things.
some schools to call it good karma. It's a dirty good karma. You don't have to call it dirty. You just call it good karma.
that means neutral thinking cause.
And then they would say sokni,
yeah, right, because
collecting the two collections
those aren't karma,
is pure good karma.
right?
So
They
there'd
don't
be no
stick-
such thing as neutral karma. Because everything we do is.
Yeah.
Would be.
Under
That's
the
all I'm
veil of
saying. I mean, it's possible
Yeah.
that they say misunderstanding is neutral because it can flow into
Into the both.
neutral virtue or non-virtue,
Or
good
the
seed,
tree.
bad seed, or it can motivate good seeds. Okay, if it were non-virtue, it would always motivate non-virtue.
That's one argument.
It could only. I'm just saying that this is a Roach argument. It's not something I saw.
It's not that.
Joshua, can I ask a question before we move on? Above just the line just above this, with all the T's, when you translate that, would you put what it's referring to in parentheses? Because
Oh.
Oh
otherwise it
no!
would be a pretty clunky-
Our Sedona translation team standard is that we're going to write out the whole argument.
Okay.
We're not going to abbreviate
Right.
things.
Yeah.
So this
Even
is
if
going to
they
be, if you agree that if something is a negative emotion, it must be misunderstanding, then let's take anger. Are you telling me it's a misunderstanding?
All right.
Then we say, he says, why do you say that? And then we're going to say, well, because it's a kind of negative emotion. And then he's going to say, why do you say that? And we're going to say, because it's anger. Okay, so we're going to put in all the answers and questions. Okay.
Yeah.
And with no
Okay.
reference to the fact.
Mainly because we want to make our books longer.
And
And we can get more sponsors.
Exactly.
Okay, this
Yeah.
is
Clearer, yeah.
self-evident.
If you think of Marikwan as neutral, then it allows you to use it to. Otherwise, you have to say that a bad karma can get you free.
Say again?
Like when we talk about using a
Oh, yeah,
bad mind to
yeah,
achieve
okay,
freedom,
yeah.
it kind of helps if we think of Marikwan as neutral.
Yeah, okay. That's okay. Then, if you agree that anger is misunderstanding, okay, if you agree that anger is misunderstanding, are you telling me it's karmically neutral? Well, why? Because it's misunderstanding, which means we believe what?
The misunderstanding is karmically
If it's misunderstanding, it must be karmically neutral.
Right.
Okay. And that's really uncomfortable for people,
Yeah.
you know. I also had this other feeling in the bathroom. This was a short pee-pee, but I had a lot of ideas. It wasn't even a number 2. I was thinking, there's no like rasa. There's no feeling that you are angry or you're just misunderstanding where you think the person's coming this way, but it's not like your mind is, what do you call it, disturbed. You know, you're just like, oh yeah, coming from him. Then that triggers anger. You know, then you can get angry. Oh, my husband did this, I didn't do anything. You know, then you can get angry in the next 5 minutes. But in the beginning, it's just kind of
neutral.
It doesn't feel like mental affliction is like klesha means something like this. Ignorance is kind of passive. You know, it's like, oh, look, he's coming from himself. You know, it doesn't like get upset. The word klesha means
Negative emotion.
yeah, you're having some kind of
Yeah.
ignorance is more like ignorance. Misunderstanding doesn't directly lead to picking up a knife and responding. You see what I mean? There has to be something between. I think.
Even
Yeah.
misunderstanding the yelling husband.
What's that?
Even misunderstanding the yelling husband, which is
Misunderstanding what?
the
The
yelling
yelling husband.
Because you have
Oh,
to be
yeah.
angry before you react.
Yeah, at the time that you misunderstand him, you are not
It is
upset
neutral.
yet. You're not upset yet.
The result
It's a
of that
millisecond
is-
before you get upset.
Yeah.
Then that leads to upset. Then that churns up your heart. You know. I'm just saying my 2 ideas I had. If I'd had a number 2, I probably had more ideas. Okay, Diminite. You cannot agree
Yeah,
that anger is lumatan,
yeah.
which means what? Karmically neutral.
Negative.
You cannot
You
say
cannot say that.
it's neutral because it's a bad karma.
Migewa.
Migewa. It's a
Migewa.
bad karma. Okay, anger is a bad karma. The misunderstanding which triggers it is a neutral karma. Okay, okay.
This is
Then
our
we have
side.
an illegal.
This
We
is
have
our
an
side.
illegal proof. Proof
Shirangin.
because it's anger.
It's anger.
Take anger. It's not karmically neutral because it's a bad karma. Why? Because it's anger. Technically, that's an illegal proof. You're not supposed to repeat the subject in the proof, in the reason. It's not, take my wife, she's always wrong because she's my wife.
It feels more colloquial.
No, that is,
I mean, you could also say husband.
that is legal because things.
That's cute. That's actually
Yeah,
cute.
if you change your voice, and there's a school that says if you change your voice, because she's my wife, then it's okay, because it's not the same thing you studied. Okay, well that's pretty cool because we learned something.
Yeah.
In this school, misunderstanding has to be karmically neutral.
Yeah.
How about the last one of the top 10 bad karma?
Which is wrong view.
Right.
Wrong view.
It's a bad
Oh,
karma.
that's touchy. That's touchy. Oh, no. In this school, they'd have to say that part of the 10th is not bad karma. In this school, they'd have to say that. Okay, here we go. Go.
Kachiknare. Chuki dangzin yin pat thao.
Imbata.
Impatao. Dangzin la chena.
Yena.
Yena.
Yeah.
Dangzin la yena. Chuki dangzin dang. Kangzaki dangzin yiki yewa.
Tepe.
Tepe.
Yeah, that's a nice
Tepe.
intonation. Yeah. Tepe.
Tepe.
Okay. Kachigane. Holding to the self nature of things must be a form of holding to self nature.
He's okay.
Holding to the self nature of things must be a kind of holding to a self nature. Why you say that?
It's one of the two divisions.
Because you can divide holding to a self nature into 2 kinds. Holding to the self nature of things and holding to the self nature of people. There's 2 kinds. Therefore, holding to the self nature of things must be a form of holding to a self-nature. Because holding to a self-nature can be divided into two. Holding to self-nature things and holding to self-nature people. So far it sounds not so bad.
That's fine.
I don't see a big problem so far. But,
Time is up.
well, we just started. That how? There must be two divisions to holding to a self-nature, because there's two divisions to the lack of a self-nature. Okay? If there's two kinds of lack of self-nature, there must be two kinds of holding to them. Okay? That's his argument. Okay? Why? Why you say that? Because you can divide lack of a self-nature into the lack of a self-nature of things and the lack of a self-nature of people. We say makyam. Just because there's two kinds of a lack of a self-nature doesn't mean there's two kinds of holding to the lack of a holding to a self-nature. Just because there's two kinds of a lack of a self-nature doesn't mean there's two kinds of holding to that self-nature.
Fair enough.
Okay.
See where it goes.
Something is.
Then I disagree. Okay, he says I disagree. If you disagree, then if something is the lack of self-nature to things, it must be the lack of self-nature.
Seems okay.
Because if, by the way, in this school, where I'm going to stop here, but it looks like in this school, you can't call, you can't call,
He doesn't go.
you can't call, one of these is illegal. Okay, holding to the self-nature of a person and holding to the self-nature of things cannot be called holding to the self-nature. Holding to a self-nature. Okay, it may. Okay, we'll go there later. Okay, we'll go there later.
Maybe
It's probably relates to the fact that they only think the third holding to a self-nature is emptiness. Okay, the third one is emptiness. Only the self-nature of things is emptiness. And by the way, can we go there? We can. The subtle form of holding to a self-nature of things is emptiness.
So you'd have to call that Maripa, not Danzin, maybe.
Yeah.
It's, oh,
No, lower ones.
Right, you'd have to call
Possibly.
lower ones. Oh, Danzin.
Maripa and not Danzin.
oh.
Oh, but I would.
It's tricky.
Okay.
Let's go there when we go
Okay.
there. Okay. Apparently, you can't call holding to a self. You can't call one of them holding to a self-nature in and of itself. Okay, in this school, say dogme, tarak, sum. Dogme, tarak, sum. In this school, 3 degrees of selflessness. Okay, and it's not accepted by the higher middle way school. Okay.
Sasi pugi juxing me tok chang Rirab ling shin yinde kempadi Sangye shingdu mikte uargi Gyokun namdak shingla chuparsho Idam guru rana mandala gam niryatayami Devang Jige Okun Sunam Yeshe Tzok Shing Sunam Yeshe Le Jungwe Dampar Kuni Topar Sho